Well, I think it's interesting when you look at social media, and by social media I mean the real-time web, Twitter, Facebook, but also Skype and YouTube and everything else. I think it has transformed journalism in a way that other things over the last few years have not. We've seen journalism reinvent itself with tape and then video and then digital. All of those things have changed the tools that journalists use. And journalists, of course, now have to think of social media as a new tool. But fundamentally, social media has actually changed or is changing the role of journalism. Are journalists still the filters between information about what's happening in the world and an audience? Or is the audience actually able to go through social media itself to not only find the information that they need about what's happening in the world that they are interested in, but in many cases use those same tools to tell the stories of what's happening in their own world, whether it's an emergency, a breaking news story, the politics of where they live. They can use social media themselves to tell the story. So what is the role of the journalist now and in the future? The really interesting dynamic going forward using social media is that if you have taken the time to build the lists and the links that you need for every part of the world, when an event happens in that part of the world, you already have, for instance, your Twitter list. Well, when an event happens, you will find that that Twitter list organically then grows with the local NGOs, the local media, the local sources in government will immediately connect you through other sources who are giving relevant information. You as a journalist can then come in and add those people to your stream, and that tool becomes relevant not just on the day the event happens, but going forward, adding more and more relevant sources of information. That tool can also be used by those stakeholders, by the NGOs, by the government, by the media, to share real-time information, which in the case of an emergency can save lives. Ultimately, over the next few years, we're going to see a platform emerge which will prevent there ever being a story that happens that nobody pays attention to. The years of a humanitarian disaster happening before anybody knew about it. The years of a sex abuse scandal developing over a decade that nobody really reported on. That is the, I think, real goal of the web and social media and the real-time web going forward, is that that kind of information must be and will be surfaced. Perhaps not by the traditional means of the media and journalists, but by a group effort of finding information and pushing. Now, some of those efforts may end up being unreliable, but in many cases, these new tools that we have access to on the web, and particularly the real-time web, for people to share and push, will, if not take the place of, then they will enhance the role of investigative journalism that surfaces really important information, really important stories in real time, not years after the fact.